Aloha, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name is Sprinklebeard, and today we get to review one of my absolute favorite champions in the game, the Noon Devil, Nauvras. Nauvras is a mage in this game, and what's really interesting about him is that they've made him kind of good in a lot of different scenarios. Now, typically in a game like this as well, you have kind of two camps. Being a champion that is more flexible and being able to handle more situations typically is better. However, it's also the same thing is also true on the opposite end. If you're not the best of that situation, you often can be very overshadowed by other champions that do anything remotely similar to you or do your job but better because they're more specialized. So we're going to review Nauvras, and we're going to be definitely painting him with rose-colored glasses to make him look his best, because he is one of my favorite champions. So, Nauvras, he is a single-target mage that does act as an AoE mage. So let's get into reviewing his stats first. So stat-wise, he has a pretty impressive attack. A lot of the other mages have around like 33 to like 34, I believe, 100 attack. So him having 36 does make him a bit on the better side. His cost is 18, which is kind of normal for a lot of our mages. And then his attack interval is 2.6, so completely average. When it comes to his skills, so your basic attack deals 100% damage, scaling up to 110% damage to one enemy. When killing an enemy, so if he deals the fatal blow here, he deals 100% AoE damage, probably just in that like same tile. I haven't seen specifically like the reach on it. We'll be trying to test that out a little bit today when we go to fight goblins. Next, he has a passive that does not link directly to his ultimate. He has Straw Minion. So every 4 seconds, summons a scarecrow that will explode on contact every 4 basic attacks, dealing 150% AoE magic damage. So the easier way to read this is that it's every 4 seconds he gets an empowered auto attack where he, instead of him throwing out just a little firebolt from his staff, he instead throws the little scarecrow off of his shoulder. The animation here is a bit slow. It's something I don't love about Nauvras at all. However, he is part of the Nightmare faction, so you often do get increased attack speed anyways, especially once you unlock Wrath. You have amazing synergy with Wrath that between the two of you, you do good single target damage and great single target damage and very good AoE damage between the two of them. And then them being physical and magic lets them kind of handle every situation. Anyways, the damage here scales from 150% damage, scaling up to 165. And the big thing I want to mention here, this isn't an ultimate. This is just his passive. Every couple of attacks, his passive will cause him to just do some big explosive damage. And that's not normal in this game. A lot of our other champions, it's their ultimate that gets them up closer to that 200% damage on something. So him being at 165 here is impressive. When fully maxed out, the instance of it happening, instead of every 4 basic attacks, it's every 3 basic attacks. And that does make a massive difference. It'll make Nauvras feel a lot better and then make him feel like you can use him in some of your other content where you might not instantly want to use him. Lastly, his ultimate is Spirit Raven. Now, I love the way that this looks, and I love how it operates. I can't wait to show you guys the actual animation for it. So, it summons a Spirit Raven to attack random targets in range. Each Raven deals 50% magic damage, lasts for 12 seconds. So, we have a couple of things here that are not good. I do want to call out things fairly, that him attacking random targets, that can make this champion feel terrible. So that's why I say that he's a lot better as a single target mage rather than an AoE mage, is that the AoE that these ravens provide is not going to be your favorite thing. And when his damage scatters, you're not going to love him. It's actually kind of an interesting thing that if they had just made him single target, he would probably feel super amazing with this. But it is random. It is what it is, so we make the best of it. So attacks enemies in range that are random. His range is also very deceptive. So when you use his ultimate, it can attack the same distance behind him and then to his sides. So his range kind of, it's not by any means like an Eadril range, and it doesn't cover the whole map. But you'll notice that the more you play with him, there's times where you can ult with him and you can reach things that you're not supposed to be able to reach, and his damage will feel very impressive. The Ravens deal 50% damage. This does scale up to 70% damage per Raven. And then the ultimate cost goes down from 1,000 and it scales down to 700. Him starting off at 500, this basically means you'll summon him out and you'll feel like he has his ultimate right away. There was a time where I was using him in my dragon team, not as a main damage source, but as like a backup source. But when I was using him for his synergy, I would summon him out, and then because he was a nightmare, he would get the attack speed bonus. He would get his ultimate almost before the first roar of dragon, so I could just use his ultimate, and then the moment he got hit by the roar, I would just unsummon him and summon in my actual like main damage dealers or my healer at that point, so I could get in some cheeky damage a little early. Awakenings. So this is a champion, I will argue, relies more heavily on their awakenings than most. So in this game or throughout this series, you guys will notice that as I go through the awakenings, I'm always like, this is going to be really cool. Oh, this is going to make this champion feel great. Because everybody's going to have a different champion that they want to awaken as they are playing through the game, right? If you pick Nauvras and like, let's say he's your second epic and you're just like, I love scarecrows, I love this goth vibe that he gives. Cool, he's a mage. So for me, that was the case. He's super up my alley. I'm going to fully awaken him. I didn't. I ended up choosing a different champion because I got a legendary mage. So unfortunately, Nauvras fell down a few pegs on my account and has kind of stayed down because of that. Nauvras, I will argue, as much as I enjoy him, I do think that he's a champion where as we give him awakenings, his kit will feel 20 times better than average. So just like Wrath, when we did our Wrath review, I do think that if you like Nauvras and if you fully awaken him, I don't think that these are going to be poorly spent resources. However, I will argue at the same time, because Nauvras' ultimate is random, it can make him feel a little bit unwieldy, or could lead you to times where he's not consistent on like auto runs. So make sure that you kind of compensate for that by, he would either need more damage or you would have another safety net in place. You don't want to rely on his ultimate always killing a target if it's kind of close. There's going to be plenty of times where he fails to kill a target because of the random nature of his ult. Anyways, awakenings. So Spirit Raven gains an additional 20% crit rate. This is amazing, right? This just means that when the moment we ult, he goes from 0% up to 20, or the opposite, that if you build him with 80% crit rate, that means whenever he ults, he will be at 100, and that can save you a lot of stats, or needing, like, for me, where I'm looking at crit rate on gear, I am finding pieces of gear with like 20% crit rate, and that's what I need at the moment on my account. So me potentially needing a singular piece of gear that just doesn't need crit rate does open the door for Nauvras to be built slightly differently, or save that piece of gear for somebody else. So very, very useful. 20% crit rate is also nuts to think about. I want to stress that as an Awakening A1, I think that's really amazing. His Awakening 2, crit damage plus 15%. So they want you critting with this champion. Make sure you do build up that crit rate. And then the extra crit damage here, the later into the game you get up to a 100% crit rate. Not every champion's 100%, but very close to it. So that 15% is kind of like 15% to all damage. I love it. Expands the explosion range of straw minions. So we've done this with Theowen, we've done this with Lightlock, that when we increase the range on something, it usually goes from being this like impressive range, typically 9 squares, right? You have your square in the center and then every adjacent cell to it. it usually takes that from a 3x3 to a 4x4, which can make the champion feel absolutely phenomenal. So for me, I absolutely love that, because Nauvras not being a typical AoE champion, but now having the ability for more AoE, makes him feel more like a mage, because most of the mages in this game, we want them doing AoE damage. That being said, though, this does not help his single target damage, right? There's no extra damage here, just increases the explosion radius, which is useful for AoE, not helpful for single target, or not helpful for doing more damage, if you will. Rage Regen, +1 auto. This is good. I do wish that like he got a 5% attack or something. I say this because I have never felt like with Nauvras, oh man, I don't have his ultimate up. I just always feel like Nauvras specifically, non-stop has his ultimate up. And then especially when you pair him with other nightmares, such as Wrath, to increase his attack speed. And then if you do that with 2 or 3 other ones, Nauvras can become almost like a Gatling gun of damage. It's really, really fun. I do plan to show that off in the video today. Finally, Spirit Raven damage increases by 20%. So this is why I said that Nauvras specifically is going to feel amazing. So here we have the base 50% damage, and then through all of his skills, he gains 20%. And then if you fully awaken him, he gets another 20%. So for people adding up, they're like, wait a second, that's 90% damage. His basic attack does more than his ultimate. Why is that good? It's because you have to see the ultimate for it to make the most sense. And I'm really excited to show that off coming up here in a moment. So let's just go ahead and show that off. Nauvras, I do think, is a very high contender for things like Dragon, even though you have AoE elements in his kit, and they would be better in other places other than Dragon. His ultimate alone is going to be the reason that players are like, oh snap, I need to consider his single target damage more than anything. So we're going to go here into the Artifact Material Raid. I do not by any means feel like this is going to be the best place for him. I just want to show off what his ultimate is capable of when you take away the random element of his ultimate. It's also why Nauvras is one of my favorite champions in the game. For this example as well, Nauvras is in our best damage gear that we have available. So understand here, his ultimate lasts for 12 seconds. So ironically enough, the more the more attack speed that we do get for him, so he's a nightmare, the more attack speed that we get for him, the faster his attack speed is going to go. So I'm going to summon out one other person just to show it off being like the true... You'll understand the moment we see it here. So he summons a Raven. Now his Raven's attack very, very quickly here. It is very fast. It is like a waterfall of damage. Now, unfortunately, I did wait too long, so too many things started showing up from behind, and instead Nauvras ended up picking them off. And then because Nauvras is only 5-star, the damage here is not going to look as amazing as it can be. We did have a stream account, and on the stream account, we did 6-star Nauvras, and his damage was very, very impressive being 6-star. It was a lot of fun to play with him. So, where is Nauvras going to be best at? Nauvras specifically is going to be a very flexible champion where you're going to feel like he's going to be useful everywhere. Will he feel top tier anywhere? Killing bosses. When you can eliminate certain environments so that he can just attack the boss, Nauvras' ultimate is just this waterfall of damage. It's a cascade of fiery ravens that just descend upon your target and blow them up. And it feels phenomenal. So with that being said, in things like the campaign, he's going to feel exceptionally great here. Having champions like Voltus and Nauvras are going to be able to defend their lanes by themselves. You're not going to need to double up with these champions. I will say that Voltus will feel a little bit better on the AoE side of things. However, Nauvras, as you give him more skill, dust and whatnot, he should start killing things faster than Voltus comparatively, just by being an epic. And then the big difference that you have is whereas Voltus is heavily dependent on his AoE, Nauvras is perfectly fine hitting those single targets. His passive lets him do extra big bursts of damage because it scales up to that 165%. And then his ultimate is just amazing for single target killing. Admittedly, it's not the best designed for AoE killing, and you kind of do lose some of your AoE effectiveness because your A1, it can, as you kill a target, do AoE damage to everything. However, your ultimate does not have that same effect. They kind of should have made that a talent, that whenever Nauvras does kill something, it pops for 100% of his magic damage. But it's still very useful. In areas like the arena, there is an argument for everything except for the flying. So for single target, his single target damage is fine, and he does get his ultimate very frequently. So you being able to cascade your damage onto the boss, like the single target, will feel very good. When it comes to sustained DPS, again, those Ravens are sustained. They're very, very fast, and you're going to feel like you're constantly getting back up to it. With his synergy with Wrath, I think just the two of them alone give you amazing coverage. You have physical coverage, you also have magic coverage, and I think that there's a lot to be said for that. When it comes to the AoE arena, you could use him, and I think that he will output enough damage to be helpful. However, there are more dedicated AoE mages, and that's where like Voltus might shine a bit better, but Nauvras could be a good secondary or a good third AoE champion to bring out. I don't think that that's going to be the best place for him to shine. I do want to state, though, you can probably bring him there, or if you've invested resources to making him 6-star, he'll feel amazing. In the Void Rift, wherever we need our magic damage, he's going to be good in. There isn't too much content where you get heavily overwhelmed. You kind of get these like bursts of champions coming through. So Nauvras will feel good at eliminating them off quickly. Or when he ults, he's only going to be hitting 3 to 4 targets most of the time. It's not often that you get flooded with enemies. So he's a good champion for the Void Rift, in my opinion. When it comes to raids, yes, he can hit flying units, but they are stronger against magic, so I don't recommend him heavily in marksman, but you could bring him there for sure. Mages, he's absolutely phenomenal, especially in that bottom lane. Nauvras is kind of that champion that the less targets he has, the better he will look. So him being on that bottom side will feel amazing. If you do get Nauvras and you're like, well, I want Nauvras to be the best, as long as he has the attack speed, he probably could handle the top pretty reliably. But again, we want to be throwing that Scarecrow Bomb out as frequently as possible. And then when we use his ultimate, understand that we're not targeting the frontmost unit. It is random. It's whoever's in range, he will be throwing a Flaming Raven at. So for that reason, you might need a defender to make sure that things don't get through. Endurance and melee, these are places where Endurance, he's perfectly fine. Absolutely use him. He'll be great. In melee, we have reduced platforms. So as we lose platforms, he's probably going to become less valuable during that time. However, if you still have him built up well enough, he can do things like that we did with like in the Osiren video, where you can just peck off things as they come walking down the lane. So again, Guild Boss, I think that Nauvras does shine very heavily here because of your ultimate is just tons of damage. And what's even better is that your Ravens do scale with your attack speed. So the faster you get Nauvras's attack speed up, the faster his ult is attacking for that 90%. So he stops caring about this like 2.2 interval attack his ravens are just non-stop, and it feels amazing. Artifact Raid, as long as you have platforms for him, I feel like he's going to be good here. However, the less platforms you have, the less useful he is. Tide is, again, one of these interesting places where I would argue he will feel good here in Tide, but he won't necessarily feel amazing. And if you're not one-shotting things with his ultimate, I could foresee you being like, oof, this isn't feeling great. However, he is still an AoE mage, and there's still a lot of damage that he has between throwing that strong minion or killing things with his basic attack. In the resource raid, I do think that both resource raids for him are absolutely amazing. This is a place where I do think that he specifically can shine more than most. And again, the big reason is that summoning him out, when we have Wrath, he gets 5%. Then we summon out Wrath, he gets that 10%. And here we can see with this decent gear, he's going to look better and better. Now that we have 4 out, we're up to that 20%. There's the Straw Minion just killing everything. There's his basic attack, exploding things and killing everything. But as you can see, the damage output that he has from his Ravens looks really cool. Feels really good. And again, he is in my best damage gear here. But I do want to do this because it does show that even at 5-star, his damage is very respectable damage. There's nothing wrong with investing into him. It's just the randomness of his ult. You do want to make sure that you have a defender or a fighter to clean up his mess, such as Wrath. In the gear raids, Gear Raid 1, he's very, very good in, specifically if his basic attack is killing off things, so that you're causing that constant explosion to go off. However, his ultimate does not feel great in this Gear Raid 1. It's one of those things that as the wave gets thinner and thinner, then you might use his ultimate. But for the most part, you do lose a lot of your AoE damage by ulting with him. So Nauvras is going to feel a little bit more skillful to use. And I don't know if that's good design or bad design. I kind of do wish that the Ravens, that as they hit, even if it was just within the square that they're doing damage to, they would AoE to some extent. But I could also see that being way too powerful as well. Gear Raid 2, this is a very good place for him. His kit is actually kind of perfectly designed for Gear Raid 2. You also getting into your ultimate very, very quickly means that if you do the strategy where you unsummon champions and resummon them back in later, Nauvras getting to his ultimate very quickly could let you clear off waves, and you don't care about saving that ultimate. You can just pop it whenever you would feel like it, and since at most there's like 2 to 4 enemies ever at a time, him using his ultimate, you're going to be hitting all 4 of them very quickly. Gear Raid 3, again, things here are magically resistant, so it's not the best place for him. However, I don't think it's bad either. I definitely can see him being an anchor pick that you hold back near your portal, and then as things get too close, again, you can just ultimate with him, and he'll help shred that thing down. It's not perfect, though. I say this very cautiously. I would encourage you to have other piercers, even use Maureen as an anchor. However, if you love Nauvras, or if you have him with good gear, and Maureen's not your cup of tea, yes, you could use Nauvras here as an anchor position. In the faction trials, he actually has 2 very good uses here. So in the basic trial, he feels fantastic because we do have synergy for mages here. More things take damage to magic damage. So he's going to feel great here. The only issue with him is the randomness of his ultimate, that if you don't 6-star him and he's not killing things off quickly enough, the ultimate just feels like you're tickling everything instead of killing everything. However, by 6-starring him, I would argue that wouldn't be a problem. Or if you've invested the resources to 6-starring him, you're also probably equipping him pretty well with gear also. When it comes to the Trial of the Nightmare, he's actually one of the few magic damage sources that you have access to without it being a legendary champion. A lot of the times people are going to be depending on champions like Wrath for his burning effect to be doing the magic damage, or Abomination to be doing his magic damage. So here you have a ranged mage that will feel good constantly doing AoE magic damage. There is Sorzis, who is another nightmare, but admittedly Sorzis is also a rare. He doesn't feel nearly as good in the damage department. He also doesn't provide any AoE. Sorzis is specifically single target. So Nauvras being single target and AoE can make him feel good in all the situations of the Nightmare faction. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it that I have for Nauvras. Nauvras is one of my favorite champions. Aesthetically, he's 100% my vibe. I love the way that he looks. The only thing that's weird to me is this little blue thing in the cage on his hip. Does not make sense to me. I do wish that that was a lantern, or that this hand staff he had. I do wish that there was a bit more of like a lantern-esque vibe. I think would work better for the Scarecrow. However, really cool concept, really interesting idea. I love the fact that he's both a nightmare and an esoterist. So the Lord advantages we get from the nightmares, he gets increased attack speed. So if you have him part of your nightmare group, you can get his attack speed very fast. So his damage will feel even better there. If you use the Esoterist reduces the cost of his ultimate. So him already getting to those ultimates very quickly, specifically if you were doing Dragon per se, you could probably be ulting twice constantly. Like, instead of everybody ulting just when the Dragon Shield is up, Nauvras is going to be ulting like once when the Dragon Shield's up and then once for fun, because his rage just builds up so quickly. This is definitely one of my favorite champions in the game. I do wish I could make him look a bit better. I do need to 6-star him. Right now, one of the biggest reasons I'm not 6-starring him is I'm trying to build up some of my weakest factions first. Where my nightmares are at, I'm at a point where I need to 6-star a nightmare tank, and then I probably do need Nauvras shortly after, or Nauvras could be the answer as well. I'm just not committed to him being a heavy magic damage dealer just yet. We'll see how things go in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe button down below. It helps out the channel a lot. If you want to join us over at twitch.tv/sprinklebeard, I stream every day, Sunday through Wednesday, depending on my work schedule. I work 12-hour overnights, so there's times I oversleep, and I consistently stream each of those days, not at the same time though. It depends on what's happening in life. Yeah, but if you want to join us over there, we like to chat, we like to hang out. We're a very helpful group. Thank you very much for watching, but of course, until that next time, ta-ta.